Hello, Allie.
Hello. Hello, Melissa. And welcome back to Liverpool, USA. This is a best friends podcast because we are best friends. And today we're talking about the most liminal space that I know of, that I've experienced.
Yeah.
And that is airports.
Yeah. Which is so intriguing to me. And you said that I wrote this on our note sheet, and I have zero memory of doing that. So I'm like, what
Yeah,
was I thinking about airports? Like, why did I write that?
I don't
And I was
I don't
thinking
know.
today, when we decided to talk about it, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's an interesting topic. What do we have to say about
Yeah,
airports?
honestly, yeah, when I was like looking through the list to like figure out, because I just am so bad these days about like planning even 1 second ahead.
Yeah.
And I was like, you were like, what are we gonna talk about? And I was like, girl, I don't know. So then I was like looking through our like little list of topics that it's like dwindling. And airports was on there, and I was like, you know what? Yeah. I remember like when it showed up like, a year ago or something on that list, and I was like, we could talk about that at some point. And yeah, today is the day.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I mostly feel like airports are such a like intriguing place just because you are just kind of forced to be there.
Yeah.
And you just like you have no you like you're not like choosing to go to an airport, you know what I mean? Like you're not like, yes, I would love to go to like the Denver
Oh,
airport,
like
like that's
for
my
the
airport of
day.
choice,
Yeah, going on a date to
yeah.
the
and
airport. Yeah, like that's not what
and
happens.
like also you're never like, having a layover in an airport that you've like chosen specifically to have a layover in, you know what
Sure.
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I book a flight, I'm never choosing the like airports that I will be spending time in. It is always like I need to fly from here to here, and this is where the layover happens to be, and I'm
Mhm.
just like have to be okay with that.
Yeah. How many times have you I'm going to phrase this differently because I feel like normally the question would be how many times have you flown in a plane? But since we're talking about airports, I'm going to say like how many times have you been in an airport? Like how much time have you
Oh,
spent in airports?
a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
When was the longest
yeah.
consecutive amount of time that you spent in an airport?
Um, the one that immediately comes to mind is one time I spent 9 hours in the Seattle airport, which is so
You
stupid
know
because
what?
that's so close
I
to.
don't remember how long it was. I don't think it was quite 9 hours. I genuinely do not remember how long it was, but I think the longest airport I've spent time in too was also the Seattle airport.
Yeah,
I think we were
yeah, that was.
probably coming back from Alaska or something,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. I've spent a lot of time in the Seattle airport. I was flying to Greece. And I flew from Medford, Oregon to Seattle, which is like uh, you know, probably hour flight at the most. Like it's a super short flight. And then I spent 9 hours in the Seattle airport. And then I flew for 12 hours to Frankfurt, Germany, spent 5 hours in the Frankfurt airport,
Oh wow.
and then flew another 3 hours to Athens.
Oh
And that's
geez.
like one of the longest like airplane days that I've ever done.
Yeah.
That was like that was a solid like 30 something hours of like being in airports or on airplanes.
Wow.
Um, so that was, I think that's probably the longest experience I've ever had. But I've done some layovers. I've done some long ass layovers.
What do you do to pass the time in an airport? Because I feel like I have like what do I do in airports? I feel like the first thing I do when I get past security, which security is like a whole nother thing that we could talk about, but
Mm-hmm.
what the first thing I usually do is just like immediately find my gate. Like no matter how much time there is before my flight, I'm
Oh
finding where
yeah,
my gate is.
I absolutely have to confirm its existence before I can
Yeah.
do anything else.
And then I can like check out what else is around there cuz I will like peruse some shops, you know.
Yeah.
I usually get some snacks, You know, depending
Yeah.
on like how long the flight is, I will probably be acquiring snacks.
Yeah, yeah. I do the same thing. I have to look at the gate first, and then I pretty much always am getting some kind of a beverage because you can't bring any beverages through with you.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I need to acquire a beverage
Yeah.
now.
And I've been in
Um,
airports enough now that I am like a little bit more comfortable in them. Like I feel like I kind of understand how they work now. And
yeah.
my most recent experience in an airport, which I could also talk about a little bit more if we want me to, is I've worked
Mhm.
in one now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I would love to hear about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll circle back to that. But yeah, no, airports are interesting. I definitely remember. I remember the first time I flew by myself and feeling like, because I had been in airports like a very fair amount as like a kid and a teenager and stuff, but always like with my family or like at least with one of my parents or something. And then I went on a school trip where I that was when I went to Greece.
Mm.
I was in high school, and so I was doing all of that with like a teacher still, which is kind of, a similar experience to a parent. Like they're doing all of it for you. You just like show up. Um, but the first time I flew like by myself, um, I flew, I think just like between Portland and Medford. Like I just flew home or something by myself from college. Um, and I remember feeling like the airport felt really different when you're like there by yourself versus
Mm.
when you're there with like your family or like I don't know, like somebody who's like in charge of you. And so yeah, I remember it feeling very different and sort of like recontextualizing like airport in my head after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first
But
time I think the first time I flew, so the first time I was in an airport, I believe was when I think I was 7 when we went to Las Vegas. And
mm,
which in hindsight I feel like was a little bit of an odd thing to do. Like what does a 7-year-old have to do in Vegas? But
yeah,
but I actually don't
sure that I've
remember the
told you this
airport at
story.
all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like I've been to Alaska a couple times because my grandparents lived there. And then I've been like to England and to Idaho. And I think those are the only places I've flown on a plane. So like
Mm,
but I have been in like a full broad spectrum of tiny tiny airports and like massive airports. Like the Amsterdam airport has to be bigger than
yeah.
the Seattle airport, right? Like for sure. I
Think so.
think. I mean, the
I've
Seattle
never
airport's
been in
huge, but
Amsterdam.
yeah, the Amsterdam one was the one that I was in for England reasons. And I haven't really done a full entire flight solely alone. I mean, an airport
Mm,
experience. Like I guess the way to England I was with Elise the whole time because I
mm,
had never flown alone before that, so I just like did that on purpose. And it was like such a
yeah.
big deal for me. um
Yeah.
but then the way back, I think I started with Avery, and then at some point though I was alone. So I think like by the time I got to Amsterdam or by the time I got like somewhere, I was alone. So I have done alone
Yeah.
airport. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your go-to like food selection in an airport?
I feel like it's been different every time. Um
Mm,
I I I don't I feel like, I mean, just like a go to snack, like when I'm traveling, if they have it anywhere, is I love chocolate covered pretzels when I'm traveling. It's like,
okay.
no matter what mode of travel it is, I would like some chocolate covered pretzels.
That's very fair.
Yeah. But right now, I know that I've had like a couple because usually there's stores that have like a little cold section, and I usually try to
Yeah.
pick something that is like going to be at least fairly nutritious and filling because
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to feel awful, during this experience. because like being on planes doesn't necessarily like freak me out too much, but of course it is like kind of nerve-wracking and like a weird experience for your body. So I've had a couple like wraps in airports, I think, like the
Hmm.
pre-made things, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't really know if I truly have like a go-to. Do you have a go-to?
I have done this multiple times. They have like the little like veggie and ranch like situation.
Hmm.
So I'll get that sometimes and then like cheese. Like I'll get veggies and ranch and then just like
Okay.
cheese stick or like little like Tillamook
Yeah.
like cheese square.
Yeah.
Because finding gluten-free food in an airport is like really difficult.
Hmm.
Um, especially if you want to like be full and or not spend like fifty
Yes. It
dollars.
is expensive. Airports, they make them more expensive, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I also and you know, this is I think can be good and can be bad. I'm a fan of the airport bar a lot of the times.
I have never been to an
Um,
airport bar.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive. It's expensive. And I very often when I am like traveling by myself, like I obviously don't want to be like drunk because that
Yeah.
would be like a
Yeah.
bit like not a good
Some
idea.
people choose that,
Um,
but maybe a
yeah,
questionable
I mean,
choice.
yeah, but sometimes it passes the time a lot better because I hate being like bored out of my mind
Mm.
in
Yeah.
an airport with nothing to do. And it's a good spot to read your book, and that's what I usually do in an
Oh.
airport. Pass the time is
Mhm.
read my book.
I usually
So I
bring a
do do
book
that.
or like a handheld gaming device.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the other thing I was gonna say about the airport bar is that I am usually never somebody who talks to strangers. Never. But I've had more conversations in an airport bar with strangers than I've ever had with strangers at any other juncture
That's
in my life.
so interesting to me. There's like a poem in there somewhere. There's like a personal essay in there
Yes.
somewhere. That's so
Oh yeah.
interesting to me. Do have you approached any of these people or do they usually approach you to like start these
It's kind of
conversations?
okay. My favorite story is I was flying to Iceland and I was meeting my mom in Iceland. So we flew
Oh wow.
separately.
Yeah.
So I was just like by myself. It was in the Chicago airport. And I had like I think like a 4 hour layover. And I was like, okay, I need to get my little veggie tray. I need to get my cheese. And then they had this like wine bar. And I was like, okay, that's perfect. I will sit there, I'll read my book, I'll eat my veggies, I'll have a glass of wine. It'll be like lovely. So I sat down, I'm like getting good to go. And it was like kind of crowded, the bar. Like I got a spot and I was sitting. But like when people wanted to go up to like order something, it was like kind of crowded with like everybody sitting there. So this guy comes and he's like like older than my dad, I would say. He was
Okay.
like not quite like old man, but he was like significantly older than me. And this was like a year ago. This was like not that long ago. And he comes up to order his drink and he was being very polite, but he was like kind of like, he was very close to me
Mm.
because that was just like the way it was.
Mhm.
So he's trying very hard to like, not be weird about it or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I'm just, trying to," and I was like, "Oh, it's totally fine." And so he like gets his beer and he goes, "Oh, like got my beer, I'll get out of your hair," and to like turn and leave.
Uh-huh.
And him and I just like make eye contact in this moment where he says, "I'll get out of your hair." Um, and I'm like, of course not gonna be like, "That's rude of you to say,"
Uh-huh.
or something. Of course
Yeah.
not. I was just, but
Did you
it
did
did
you
like,
realize what he said and like the humor about what he could have said when he said it? Or
yes, like
yeah.
I heard it and was like, "LOL" in my
Yeah.
head. And like kind of we like made eye contact and then he like also at the exact same moment like realized what he had said and we like make eye contact and he goes, "Oh my god." I'm like he's so sweet, like the sweetest most pure like
Oh.
older man. He's like, I did not mean to like say that offensively. Like, it's just a figure of speech. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, I didn't take
Did you
offense.
start
Like,
laughing?
yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, it's totally fine. I was like, I didn't like take it. Like, I know it's just a figure of speech. Like, don't worry. And he's like, I feel like mortified. Like,
Aww.
I just feel so bad. Like, here you are, just like trying to like enjoy your night
Well,
and
and he
like
probably
get to your
didn't
destination.
realize why you didn't have hair. So he's like, I don't know what's going on
Yeah,
here. So this could be like really offensive, or like he probably did, like there was multiple levels in his brain of like
yeah.
what, yeah.
He like he just was like, I'm so sorry. He was like, can I please like pay for your
Aw.
drink? Because I feel so bad. I just want to. Can I please pay for your drink? And I was like, you really don't need to do that.
Yeah,
Like,
you were
it's
like, you
okay.
don't understand that you just created like the funniest, like one of the
Yeah,
funniest
I'm like,
moments of
I'm
the year for me.
laughing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I am not offended. It's totally fine. So it like as we're like doing this back and forth, where I'm like, no, 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 it's totally fine. The seat like right next to me, like the on the other side, like opens. Like the guy leaves the other like side of me,
Uh-huh.
and there's like it's crowded, so there's like no other seats. And so this guy's like, oh, do you mind if I like sit here? The guy who just said that to me, he's
Uh-huh.
like, do you mind if I sit right next to you? If he's like, if you don't want me around, like it's
Oh.
okay. And I'm like, no, it's totally fine. You can like, of course you can sit here. Like it's totally fine. And then we just started talking, and he was like the sweetest guy
Oh
ever.
my
Like he
gosh.
was like literally like such a dad. He like gave me career advice. He was like so nice. He like asked me where I was going, like in a very whole like I feel like this could be portrayed as like creepy, but it
Mhm.
was not. Like the vibe was not creepy. It was very wholesome. But he like gave me career advice. He was like asking me, like what I wanted out of life, and like
Aw.
giving me advice and
Yeah.
like telling me stories about his life. And he was like from Idaho, and I was like, oh, my parents were from Idaho, and like we like talked about that. It was like very wholesome.
Oh my
So that's like
gosh.
we like took a selfie. I'll have to send it to you after
Oh
this.
my god.
But
Did
we
I
like took
know
a
about
selfie. He was
this?
like,
I don't think I knew
I
about
posted on
this.
like Instagram, I think, at
Oh.
some point, like on my story. But yeah, we took a selfie at the end because he was like, I gotta tell my kids about you. Like, like I met this like, lady in the airport bar, and she like, and I like accidentally insulted her, but then and also he was like traveling on business or something, and he was like, please let me put your drink on the company credit card. Like
Oh
I
my god.
need to buy your drink. Like, and he's like, it's not even me buying it. It's like my company. So just like let it happen. And I was like, okay. And so he
Yeah.
like bought me a drink with the company credit card, and he was very sweet. And
Aw.
that's my best like airport like meeting a stranger
That's so
story.
amazing. Oh my gosh. I love that. That
Yeah.
is so amazing. I don't like, if I think about it, I do not have a single like highlight story from an airport. I feel like I've had only liminal moment
Yeah.
experiences. Like nothing significant has happened to me in an airport. I have flashes of moments like
Mm-hmm.
running around. There's a really small airport in Tri-Cities that I've been in a couple times, especially when I was younger, like running around in that airport. Um I remember on the way back from England, the bathrooms in the Amsterdam airport were like completely shut in. Like there's no,
Oh yeah.
and I like on the way back from England was like I was very tired and very emotional. Like when I got back to America and like got through customs and everything, which I also like don't really remember. Like customs is a blur to me. I'm scared to like do it
Yeah.
again because I like don't remember how it worked. But
Oh yeah.
um but like I like just started crying when I got to like
Mm-hmm.
my mom and stepdad who came to pick me up, and they like got, I think they
Mm-hmm.
brought me like cookies and flowers, and I just started
Oh.
crying and was just like, I don't even really know why I'm crying. This is just like a lot. But in the Amsterdam airport, I was all alone, and it was like very weird, and I had like a weird like
Mm-hmm.
an awkward amount of time before my flight. And I remember, and this is like so gross, but I don't know. I remember like in a little like closed off little stall, like it's an individual little bathroom basically. I like sat on the floor for a little bit and like cried for a little bit cuz it was just
Oh.
like not necessarily like a depressing really sad cry. It was just like This is a weird
Yeah.
big moment for me. Like this, like I'm processing. I have to like have a private
Yeah.
moment to process. Um,
Yeah.
and like
I've
I
cried
don't
in an
even.
airport before,
Yeah, I have
for
cried
sure.
a few times in an airport actually.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
It happens
actually, yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, for like a few different reasons. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've had some like interesting airport, like spending times in airports, and it's weird because it's just like there's so many strangers, and like they're all
Yeah.
on a different agenda, and like you'll probably never see any of them again ever. And it's
Yeah.
it's definitely a weird. And I remember, I just keep getting like flashes now. Like I remember the Amsterdam airport, I remember that's when I noticed. I feel like people in Europe, even though this is an airport, so it's like a lot of them probably weren't even Europeans, like everybody had
Yeah.
cool coats. Do you remember that?
Hmm.
Like I just remember noticing, I was like, man, I just brought like I brought like a cool coat, like I brought like the one that buttons up and it's like kind of like a gothic type trench coat deal. But
Yeah.
like my warmer coat was just like my boy's coat that I've had since like high school, you know. And I just remember thinking like, man, I need like a stylish coat. Like everybody's coat here is like cool and stylish and I feel like a trash person in my coat. You know, I'm just like I remember
I
that
get
for
that.
some reason.
When you go to okay, when you go to the airport, like, what do you wear?
I wear I try to wear comfy clothes. And I try
Yeah.
to wear whatever clothes are the largest that I will be packing so they don't take up as much room in my luggage. Like I'll usually if I'm bringing a coat, like I'll wear the coat so I don't have to put it in my luggage. Um and I could like I am when I sit on a when I sit anywhere, like I'm okay with having stuff in my lap. It's almost like comforting for me. So I'm okay with like
Yeah.
having to carry my coat in my lap or whatever. So I'll
Yeah.
usually like wear a coat. I'll usually be wearing like my chunkiest pair of shoes. So sometimes it's like my Doc Martens. Um
Mhm.
but I try to wear comfy clothes. I don't really like that I own a pair of sweats, but I don't really like wear them. And so I don't go that intensely comfy. I'm usually still wearing
Mhm.
like jeans cuz I'll be wearing them on a different day on my vacation. But you know, just like casual. Like I'm not like trying to look nice when I go to the airport.
Yeah. I am the same. I definitely go comfier than you do because I do in real life as well.
Yeah.
But because airports are not real life. But I yeah, I wear like leggings pretty much every time I
Mhm.
go to the airport. And I will specifically I will take up more suitcase room to not wear my boots when I
Oh.
am
Uh-huh.
going like through security and stuff. Like I will put those in my suitcase because I don't want to take them off and put them back on when I go through security. Like
Yeah.
I'm like I will not be taking off and putting back on a pair of lace up like Doc Martens. Like I just will not be doing
I
that.
totally will, and it's like I don't even think about it until I'm there, and I'm like, "Ugh, my shoes take so long to lace on and off." But now my newest Doc
Yeah.
Martens are zip up, so that's easier. But yeah,
Yeah.
I like have definitely like when I go through, we could totally segue into talking about security. When I
Yes,
go
let's
through
do it.
security, like I'm definitely it can be so stressful. I feel like when you're going through security and
Yeah.
you have to take your laptop out of your bag separately and you have to a lot of the times and not all airports make you do this, which I think is really interesting. And have found that not all security people are exactly the same, and
Oh no.
usually bigger airports are more intense than smaller airports. Usually, in my experience,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
um, like you have to take out like your bag that has all your liquids in it separately and you take off your shoes. And I always remember that I wear this because I always wear my seatbelt because those are the only belts that I wear, and I always wear a belt, so I have to remember to take that off because it is a huge freaking chunk of metal. So I take that off, and you like put your jacket in there, so you know. And then I feel like it could be so stressful when it comes out the other side, and then you like are scrambling to pick up all your stuff really quick and like get out of there really fast, and I'm like scrambling because usually I'm with other people and my shoes take a little bit to put on. So I'm like grabbing all my stuff. I just grab my shoes. I walk in my socked feet like over to like the closest bench and then just like set everything down, and I just like sit on the bench to put on my shoes real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like kind of like my method.
I I I am like, I think one of the only people that I'm just not stressed to go through security, like even a little bit.
Yeah.
I plan ahead. Like, this is the thing, that
Mhm.
I plan ahead. I wear shoes that are like on off easy. I'm always wearing like a pullover sweatshirt so that they don't make you take it off.
That's a good, yep, that's
I'm
smart.
I'm always like, I don't wear a belt because I'm wearing leggings. I always have my stuff like in my bag specifically positioned so that it's like the easiest to get the stuff out that you need to have out and easiest to like put it back in. And like, I have a really good like travel bag that I use now that I like, that makes that easy.
Oh, good,
And I
yeah.
just like, I have it down, you know? And
Mhm.
honestly, if I'm being so honest with myself, the people that are scrambling, I'm annoyed at them.
But that's why I try hard to get out of the way, because like I get
Yeah.
kind of annoyed because when the stuff comes out the other side, like don't just grab it as soon as it comes out. You push it all the way down
No.
to the end so that more people have room to get in there. And so that's why, the people who will just like get like in, and it's like, no, like push your stuff down so that more people can so that's why
Mhm.
I'm like fast. I've gotten a lot better at it, like working at the airport was
Mhm.
like pretty significant for me in kind of like going through airport security more times so that I can kind of like
Yeah.
like when I worked at the airport. I still wore my belt because I just always do, but I always took it off, so that's just something I'm always going to do. Unfortunately, the shoes I wore to work like just simply laced, so that just sucked. But like um I got to pass the line, which felt really weird, and I'm really happy that no one got mad at me, because I had someone that I worked with said that one time someone got like really mad at them for skipping the line, and they were
Oh my
like,
god.
"Do you want your plane to like work today?" Like, then I'm an employee, so you better let me through. But they didn't know that this person was just like a Made in Oregon employee. Like, they don't know what kind of employee
Yeah.
they are. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so I got to like skip the line, and then I had a like a badge that you scan. Um, but I did still have to take off my shoes. But I did get to go through like a smaller, less intense metal detector. Um, but I still like took off my belt and my shoes. But I like never brought a lunch with me, because I'm like, I don't want to waste time having to worry about food stuff. Like, you can bring some food in, and I was just like, I don't, I would just bring like, I had a separate little backpack for when I went to work at the airport that just had like the bare minimum. So I
Mhm.
did get like a lot smarter about it, and was like ready to go. As I'm walking up to the front, I'm like, loosening up my laces, and I'm like ready to go, taking off my belt and whatever. Um, and so having that experience was just like interesting, because it gave me like a slightly different view of airports. Like, I became even more used to them and like familiar with how they work, even though I
Mhm.
I didn't have like I didn't work like for the airport. Like, I didn't do like an airport specific thing. I just worked like in a store in the airport, but it's still. But before
Yeah.
I talk too much about that, um is there anything else you have to say about like the security process? Cuz I think the security process is fascinating, because
Yeah.
we did not experience airports, at least consciously, if we were ever in one, pre September 11th, 2001.
No, I know that I did. I mean, my parents took me somewhere, I believe,
Oh, wow, really?
before that. But I mean, I was like a little tiny baby.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because we would go back to Idaho before my grandparents and everybody moved to Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so normally we would fly, and I think there was one other time, I don't really know. Obviously, I was like a baby, I don't
Yeah.
know. But Yeah, but my sister was born the month after. My sister was born in October 2001. So we didn't travel for a while after, right after 9/11, because
Yeah.
my parents had a newborn, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
I remember.
oh yeah,
Oh,
you
go
so
ahead.
you remember things? Like, do you remember changes happening? Like, what were you gonna say?
Not really. I don't remember changes happening because, like I said, I don't. I was in an airport before that, before
Mm-hmm.
9/11, but not like consciously. But I do remember flying when I was pretty little, like 5 or 6, and that was like right after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Like within like a year or two after 9/11, and I remember my mom and my dad, but mostly my mom, like commenting on changes.
Oh,
Like
sure.
my
Yeah.
mom being like, "Oh yeah, like now we have to do this," or like, "Oh yeah," and like kind of being uncertain about like what the rules were because they had
Mm-hmm.
all just changed and like that kind of thing. So I remember that. Like, I know we went to Orlando, Florida, when I was like 5,
Oh
I want
wow.
to say. Because my mom went to this like pharmacy conference there.
Oh.
Um, and she got like as part of it because it was like a work trip. She got like one like day ticket to like Disney World or something.
Mm.
And so she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna like take like my kid." And Jess didn't go because she was like a baby,
Mm-hmm.
and so like only I went like with my mom, and I think my dad. Yeah, my dad was there too. Um, and so we like made like a little trip of it, but it was like my mom's like work convention. We flew to Orlando, and so that was like the first time I like remembered being in an airport. And I remember like my parents commenting on things being different. I remember like having a layover. Like we flew from Oregon to Florida, so it was like long,
Oh yeah.
and I remember like being in airports. Like we had a layover. Like we had to like be in like airports for like a long period of time. And I just remember like being there and sort of, yeah, my mom like commenting on a couple of like changes, I remember people being like a little like uneasy, maybe like, oh yeah, like this is still kind of like right after 9/11
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Like in my memory, like my airport memory, it's like always the way that it has been. So I feel like for
Yeah,
a long time in my life, I didn't realize that airports weren't always like that. And I saw someone
yeah,
talking, and of course I realized it like a long time ago, but recently I
yeah.
saw someone online, some random person somewhere, like commenting on how like you see in some older movies, uh there would be like a romance that's like shaped around someone getting on the wrong flight accidentally, like stuff like that. And it's like you can't even imagine that happening anymore. Like that does not happen. Or
No.
people like
Yeah.
saying goodbye at the gate or anything like that. And it's like so hard for
Mhm.
me to imagine that things were like that like relatively not that long ago. And so it's really
Yeah.
interesting to me. And like I understand I'm not criticizing it. Like I understand why airport security exists like it does. Um
Mhm.
but it's fascinating that, like how normal it is now, that it's just like that's the way it is.
My dad was born in Canada, which I'm sure I'm sure I've told you that before.
I'm sure
My
you
dad was
have,
born in
yeah.
Canada. And he had British parents. So like in a lot of, I mean, and he is an American citizen now, and like he got his citizenship when he was like a child, but he, was born in Canada, and on his passport it like says, or like on his, I don't know, whatever documentation it is, it like says that he is like US citizen but like wasn't born in the US.
Sure. Uh-huh.
Um and every time that we go through airport security with my dad, like even though like obviously me, my sister, my mom, we're all like full like American citizens born in the United States, like, you know, every time that we're traveling like with him, everybody gets stopped and we have to like answer questions about like
Wow.
what he's doing. And he's like an American citizen now, so it's like, and he has been since he was like 8 or
Yeah, for like a
something,
long time, yeah.
for like a very long time, like, like 40 something years. And
Yeah.
we still get questions, and it's like, and he even says that like, when he was younger, like before 9/11, that didn't happen. But now
Oh,
it
yeah.
does. And so he's like, oh, okay, like, you know, sort of the difference with that. And also he there's this like um like the terrorist like list or whatever, like the
Oh,
watch
uh-huh.
list or like
Mhm.
the no fly list or whatever. Apparently there's some like airplane terrorist named John Watson
Oh.
or Andrew Watson. Um which is like obviously just 0% my dad. Like also that guy
Yeah.
was not born in Canada, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
but yeah, so he always has to answer like a million questions cuz he's like Canadian and has the
Yeah.
same name as
Ugh.
like some terrorist.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my dad has definitely experienced a big difference in airports. It's
Yeah. I don't think I've ever been specially pulled aside before. I have been
yeah.
like had to redo the thing and like maybe been pat down like the very first time I think when I had um my new job and I went through I like forgot to take my belt off and the guy was like
Mm,
kind of like chastised me for it, and but it was like I have never had like a significant like pulled aside experience or anything like that. Last time we went to Las Vegas like a couple years ago or whenever it was, um we went to the M&M factory as one does and got a
yeah.
decent amount of M&Ms, and Nicole had a lot in her luggage, like a cut like bags
Yeah.
of M&Ms. And she got pulled
Yeah.
aside and they like took everything out of her luggage because they like saw the bags of M&Ms and were probably like, what
Yeah.
kind of pills can these be, or I don't know. But so yeah, so she
Yeah.
got rummaged through because she had too many M&Ms, which is like so
Yeah.
funny. Just because of the
When I
M&Ms.
when I came home from Hungary, I had like a lot of like coins
Oh.
because I visited like a decent amount of countries when I was in Hungary, like Hungary and others, and I like kept a couple of coins from like each place, and I like had them all in like one little like baggie, I guess, and so it was just like metal in this like bag, like stuffed in the bottom of my bag. And they did not like that. So they
Oh.
pulled that out and they were like, what is this? And
Uh,
it was like a bag of change. And I'm like, it's a
yeah.
bag of change? They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
I've,
it's
I've
like,
had
have you
that.
never had anybody coming out of Las Vegas with a big bag of M&Ms before? Like, I'm sure this has happened.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I've certainly had that. I've flown with my viola once, and that was like a journey.
Oh, I'm
Holy
so
shit.
scared
That
to
was
ever
like
fly with an instrument.
Yeah, I just flew home. Like last time I went at Christmas, last Christmas to Medford, I flew from Bellingham to Medford. And I bought a violin while I was there, and then I brought it back.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
so I
Okay,
had to
yeah.
like fly with a violin back, and that was so stressful too. Like I've done it like a couple of times, like flown with an instrument, and it's just like, oh my god, I'm like never more like mother than when I'm like
You
flying
you
with a
take it as a
violin.
carry-on, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. If you put that thing under the plane, you'll
Yeah.
never like see it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you take it as a carry-on, and like every single person wants to open it up and touch it, and you have to
Oh.
just like every security person, like they always want to open it and look at everything, and I'm like, please, like don't.
Oh my god.
Like just
Like
do not
for
touch the
security
bow. Like
reasons?
yeah, like they open like it goes through the like X-ray, and then they're like,
Yeah.
"What is this?" And they open it up, and they're like touching the bow. So like that always is like kind of stressful, and then it like never fits in the overhead bins,
Oh yeah.
and it's just like, ugh. But I don't do it unless I have to, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just have
Oh my
to.
gosh. That's like I don't even want to think about trying to fly with like a base or something because oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's just like
no,
oh my gosh. I know that there
no,
are things like I remember someone. This is another thing that I've seen online. It was like this like Facebook group I'm part of like Portland musicians, and someone was asking about flying with a guitar. And I guess there's a couple airlines that you can, if you like figure out how to do it, they have like a coat closet type thing on board where it could fit something like that, and you can like have them put it in there if you can like figure out how to do
yeah,
it. And I'm like, that would probably be what I would ever do. Because
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
really had to, but I don't know. We'll see. But anyway,
yeah.
don't want to get like too outside of the airport here. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, airports are just so interesting. Yeah, there's so many rules and like things that just never apply in normal everyday life that just like are have to be at the forefront of your mind in an airport, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay. Like, there's like literally nowhere else that you like can't bring a bottle of water. But
Well, usually
you,
like concerts and stuff, you can't bring
I
in like a
guess,
yeah, yeah.
I guess that's true.
But no,
But
like
like,
you have a point. There's nowhere else that you have to take off your shoes? I don't
not
think.
really, no.
Yeah.
No shoes, no liquids, like not having, you have to like take stuff in and out of your bag.
Yeah.
You have to carry everything like with you.
Mhm.
Like there's nowhere to put anything. You just have to like carry it. And like I always find that like when you're like one of the most I think like humbling experiences in an airport is like when you're in an airport by yourself and you have like a suitcase and like a backpack and you have to like go to the bathroom.
Oh.
And it's
Yeah.
like you can't leave that shit anywhere. You have to bring it
Yeah.
in the stall with you. And then you're like, okay, like I got my suitcase, I got my backpack, like
And
I'm stacking all this
sometimes
stuff.
they make the stalls big enough to do that, which makes
And
sense.
sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like truly just like a humbling experience to like rein all of that in to like go
Mhm.
to the bathroom. And then
Yeah.
like you have to wash your hands and you're like, okay, like let me like push my suitcase like to the thing with my knee so I don't
Yeah.
touch it before I wash my hands. It's like it's like a whole journey. But yeah, no, airports are so interesting. And like yeah, the food options are always so weird. It's like, do you want a
Yeah.
burger
And they're not
or do
always
you want
open all the
like
time. Like it's interesting when you're like at an
yeah.
airport early enough or late enough that like nothing's open, but there's still a whole bunch of people
Yeah.
there, so it's like I don't know. It's because time
It's
doesn't
so
exist the same in
interesting.
airports. Like it's weird that stores have
It really
regular
doesn't.
open and close times because like
Yeah, because
people
like,
can
well,
be in
I'm
an
here.
airport at any time, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I do you like have you ever done like a flight where you have to leave at like literally like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
and it's just like the most absurd time to be like waking up and trying to do anything?
Yeah, I remember on the way back from Las Vegas, we got like just a few hours of sleep because we had to get up really weirdly early and like get to the airport for our flight. I don't remember what time it was, but it was something
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I think yeah, that's the closest one I can remember, but I've definitely like woken up and left the house at super weird times that I wouldn't for any other event ever to like be at the airport.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, yes. Okay, are you somebody who gets to the airport 3 full hours before your flight or do you get there like cutting it so close? Like how do you
I think that
operate?
over time I've gotten to the point where how much do they I think they usually say like 2 hours, but
Yeah, 2 to 3 hours I think is like kind of the
I
standard.
think
Yeah.
that I usually do um almost 2 hours, but usually not that much, and it also depends on what's happening. Um
Yeah.
like I've gone to the airport. I don't think that I've ever like cut it close because that's just not my personality type. That would just freak me
Yeah.
out way too much. I'm like I will not be there at a point where I will be nervous. Like I'm guaranteed to like be stressed out. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not an excessively early person, but I'm not a last minute person. I will usually get there
Yeah.
with probably a little bit more time than I really need.
That's how I am. I definitely err on the side of like getting there a little too early,
Mhm.
but I just don't want to be late. And also
Yeah.
sometimes you never know like what's gonna happen.
Security
Like
is it's so weird how it fluctuates. And I saw this especially when I worked there. And I only worked at the Made in Oregon airport store for like a few months maybe, and it was like once a week. So it
yeah.
really was not that much, but it kind of felt like a lot. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do people do this every day? Because it's like
Yeah.
you're not just driving to work and then getting out of your car and going to work. It's like I had to park in employee parking, which is miles away from the airport, actually, and then
Mhm.
like take the bus to the airport and then get into the airport and then go through security and then walk all the way to the
Oh my
store,
god.
so like it was a whole thing just to get to work, but it's like when I walked in every day, I never knew how long the security lines were going to be, which didn't matter when I was working because I could just pass them, but it's like it's so weird, there's no set
Yeah.
guaranteed thing. I feel like, if
Yeah.
you work in the airport and you kind of like know when the flights happen, then you can kind of make sense of it, like I'm sure that
Yeah.
they understand it, and even like when I was working in the store, you can look online when all the flights are departing and arriving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we would know, like, oh, we can expect to have more people in the store in between this hour and this hour because the flight takes off at this time and
Yeah.
arrives at this time and that and this and that. But yeah, I don't even remember where
Yeah.
I was going with that. I have one more question though.
Okay.
What is your most favorite and least favorite part about an airport?
Hmm. Um, Literally the only thing that is coming to my mind at all is that my least favorite airport on the face of this earth is Newark Airport. Newark, New Jersey Airport is the most like hellscape
Uh,
of an airport. And I have been so unlucky as to find myself in that airport like probably 5 times in the last like
oh
five
wow.
years, 6 years. Um, because it's a huge like international hub. Like you always do a layover there if you're like going. Like I had a layover there when I went to England, layover there
Mm.
when I went to Hungary. Like it just always. Um, Hate that airport. The entire thing is screens. Like, and when
You've
I say that,
said
I mean
this. Yes.
it is so hell. Like everything. Like you don't talk to any person except the T like there are TSA people, like security's the same. Like that's not the problem.
Mhm.
But once you're in, like every restaurant, every surface, every wall is a screen playing
Wow.
advertisements. It is
Wow.
literally like straight out of fucking Black Mirror. Like it is so like where am I? It makes it feel so much like so much more liminal, so much more of like a
Yeah.
alternate reality where
Yeah.
you're like, what am I doing? Like you can't even sit at any table and eat food without an iPad like right
Oh
there.
my gosh. That is
Um,
terrifying. You talked about that we talked about advertising in a
oh my god.
podcast. Yeah.
Yes. You're right. You're right
Yeah.
because that is like yeah.
Is there a part
Um
about like all airports, like just the airport experience that you like dislike the most?
uh, I honestly don't really mind airports. I think the only thing is like and this isn't really to do with airports. This is like to do with airlines, kind of. Is like getting like your flight getting delayed for like some
Oh.
stupid reason, and then
Uh-huh.
or they like oversell and they don't have enough spots anymore, and then you get your flight gets whatever, like that
Has
kind of
that ever
stuff.
happened to you? That's never happened to me.
Yes.
Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh.
god, yes.
But
I was flying home.
you've been in airports more than me. Like you've been on
Yeah,
more flights and stuff than me, so.
yeah. I was flying home from Bellingham. I was flying from Bellingham to Medford, and it was like Christmas. I think it was like two
Ugh.
Christmases ago or something. And so I'm like, I have to get home. I was by myself, and we were on the airplane, like on the airplane, ready to take off. And then they said, "Just kidding, this flight is canceled. There's only like 10 seats left on the only other plane, like leaving." And literally they said this. They were like, whoever like gets to the other gate first, gets them.
Oh no.
Literally, people were like sprinting, shoving. Like it was like absurd. I got a seat.
Oh.
Let me just say that. But
Really?
yeah, oh, I booked it. I
Oh my
fucking
gosh.
ran past everybody. and
That
like
is
got
so
it. But
stressful to me because there are people who like miss weddings, miss
yes,
funerals, miss like really important, like that's so stressful. Like when I
yes,
was flying to see my dad in Idaho and then flying back, like both of those times were two like really stressful times where it's like if a flight was delayed, it would have been like terrible. And I was so
yeah,
lucky that we had an okay experience that time in the airport. But like I have
yeah,
experienced
yeah,
delayed flights before, but I have
yeah,
never experienced like just never mind, you can't get on this plane or like never mind, it's not going to
yeah,
take off today.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
I
gosh.
have you ever like run through an airport, like your flight gets delayed and then you have to like run to make your connection? Have you ever done
Um
that?
I'm really trying to remember, which is so funny because I haven't even been in as many airports as you and I think that I have been. Oh my gosh. I do not have I don't have a real answer for this. All I can say is like I think that I have been in a hurry in an airport, but
Mhm.
nothing to like, put in a movie or anything. Like nothing
Oh, yeah.
super cinematic or anything like that. Yeah.
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 I've run through the Frankfurt airport twice in my
Oh my
life. Like
gosh. Well,
sprinted.
yeah. Ha-
And that airport is so freaking big, and if you're even like a tiny bit delayed, you have to
yeah.
run.
That's one thing about airports that adds to the liminal aspect is like I am not great with directions. I will get lost very
No.
easily. I cannot backtrack for the life of me. I am very bad at it. And
They're weirdly laid out.
yes, and especially right now, the PDX, the Portland airport is because they're doing like a ton of really huge renovation stuff.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
there's weird like redirections and whatnot, but like now I kind of understand how the Portland airport's laid out. I've been in that airport specifically enough times to like get it. And like the one in Alaska and Tri-Cities, for example, are so small that like you can see like the whole airport from if you're standing in like the center
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
But
Medford and Bellingham are tiny, so
yeah.
yeah.
But like I remember I mean, I don't even remember the Seattle airport, the Amsterdam airport, Portland, especially like before I started working there and everything. It's just like so like one thing about airports is like I don't know where they begin, I don't know where they end, like I don't know what's
Yeah.
happening here, I don't understand, and it's like it's just a building that's set up with a certain amount of rooms, it ends somewhere, it's a certain shape, but it might as well just be an ever changing like the stairs in the labyrinth. And it's
Yes. Yeah. I
it's
do feel that.
yeah.
I do feel that.
Yeah, that is one. That is probably like that and sometimes how many people there could be. Like that could be
Yes,
pretty stressful.
and some people are like running for their lives, and some people are like eating a snack and like sitting down.
Yeah, like
It's like
there's so many
people are
different
having wildly
experiences
different
happening.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's which can be terrifying and interesting. Like you have people that are really
Yeah.
stressful because they are like in a hurry or they're freaking out or they're really stressed out. Or you can like hear people with really cool accents from different countries, or like see some really
Definitely.
interesting people and it's like, "Ooh, I
I
wonder where they're
love
going."
people watch in an airport. I love people watch. One thing
Yeah.
that some actually like a teacher told me, I think in high school, might have been like a professor in college, told me was when you're like traveling a lot and you get to like the gate where you're going home to where you live. So like if you are maybe you have a connection whatever, but like as soon as you are like in the gate where everybody there is going to where you live, it's like you can kind of like see your own like hometown like in the people that are like around. Like you can tell like everybody is like from the same place kind of like in these like little pockets like around the airport. Like you're like, oh, now I'm in like the Bellingham gate, like I can tell all these people are from Bellingham,
You know
you
what?
know.
I think I kind of understand that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's always like stuck with me a lot because I feel like, yeah, when you people watch in an airport, you can kind of like see these like little like at each gate you're like, oh yeah, those are all the people like going to Europe, those are all the people like going to LA, and like these are the
Mhm.
people going to my hometown,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can kind of tell.
Yeah. Yeah, like I
um
remember when one of the times that we went to Alaska, it was warm here, but it's cold in Alaska. So we're going to the
Mhm.
airport and we have like, or it's even more interesting when you're coming back and we've got
Mhm.
like pants and boots and jackets on and you get, and
Yeah.
like everybody else does, but you get back and then it's like everybody else is wearing like t-shirts and shorts cuz it's like it's hot out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it is interesting seeing like different people and how they're dressed and where they come from and yeah. Yeah.
My sort of final question I have to pose for you
Mhm.
about airports is, what do you think, once and for all, about the Portland airport carpet?
I think I do not remember because I believe that I've been in the Portland airport before they changed the carpet. But it didn't
Mm.
really mean anything to me because I'm not like
Mm.
a Portland local. I hadn't been in the airport that many times. So it didn't really mean
Mm.
much to me. But I think that my opinion about like the hype and stuff is that I think it's kind of cute. Like I think it's sweet when there is like a sense of um proudness of something or loyalty to a hometown or a community. Like it just feels like that's the vibes that it gives me is I think it's fun.
Mhm.
I think it's
I
fun
agree.
to sell like Made in Oregon sells like socks with the pattern and like I've seen masks and I've seen pillows and like it's become like a fun little thing. So
Yeah.
I think that it's like kind of fun, but I'm not so attached to it that I'm like have an opinion about it. Like I'm not like sad about it or anything like that. I think it's kind of funny. It's like a really funny observation of the human experience that like a population of people have become attached to a carpet in an airport. you know,
Yeah.
which is like
Yeah.
gross. Like it's for sure it's gross. Like it probably needed to go. Like
Yeah.
you can't have carpet in an airport forever. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I agree with you. I think all airports should have a signature carpet look. I think that
Yes.
would make airports more fun if it was like,
Yes.
a highlight of your airport experience was like seeing what their
Oh
carpet
yeah, we
pattern
need to
was.
start putting like arcade carpet in airports for sure.
Please. That's all
Yes.
I want.
Yeah.
That would enhance my travel experience.
Yes.
But yeah, I liked the Portland airport carpet. I remember when I was a kid, we would like see it and be like, "Oh my god, it's such like wacky carpet! Like this is so
Oh,
fun that the
okay.
airport has this."
Yeah, that's cute that you remember that you have like actual memory of that.
Yeah, yeah. I was in the
Yeah.
Portland airport a lot. We used to fly out of Portland all the time. Like we wouldn't fly out of Medford
Yeah.
because it's like cheaper to fly out of
Mhm.
Portland. So we would do that a lot, and now it's just like easier to fly out of Medford for my parents and stuff. And I obviously don't live there anymore, so
Yeah.
whatever. I fly out of Seattle airport mostly now. And Seattle doesn't have a fun carpet, I gotta say.
Oh, yeah, you know
So
what? I don't remember it, so must not be that significant.
it's not. It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of think more airports should have a signature carpet, but
I love
that's my
that
opinion.
idea and I think that that is spectacular and I think that's a great note to end on. Yeah.
I
I
think so
think that
too.
like I've kind of figured out that my airport experiences have like somehow stand out in their own way and also mostly have just blurred all together. Like every time I'm in an airport, it's like it's all blurred together.
Yeah, and I think that that is like very indicative of the way airports be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad we got to talk about airports.
I love this. Yeah, such a niche conversation. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody about airports at length before.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I love that. We're stretching
So
our brain in creative ways.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, until next time, love ya.
I love you too.
Yeah. Okay, well, goodbye.
Bye.